While this is finishing up its sanitizing cycle, we're going to go ahead and prep our fermenter. So we got the fermenter here. So remember, this is the fermenter. It's got the tape over the bottom. We're not going to touch that. We're going to leave that alone. And a little piece of tape over the top. Now recall that we want to keep this as germ-free as possible. It's going to stay locked until we're ready to use it. So for now, though, we're going to shake it up. Because this has a sanitizer, we just want to coat every surface again. I like to keep my finger over the top here, and we're just going to shake it. So when you get your fermenter, the first time you ever use a fermenter, it's gonna be completely locked. You'll be the first person to open it since we sanitized it. You're gonna have to tear off this part, tear it completely off, and be able to get the fermenter back open in order to pitch your yeast. So just be aware. On the next step, when we go to pitch our yeast and to prep our fermenter completely, you're gonna have to be able to tear this off, rip it away, and throw it away. On this one, I already did that because I was monkeying around with it earlier, so you're not gonna see me take that off. And I'll be right back. I'm going to grab my yeast out of the refrigerator. You should too. This is your yeast pouch. This is what we would have asked you to put in the fridge when you first received your shipment. Please go ahead, if you haven't grabbed it out of the fridge already, go ahead and grab it. And what we're going to do next is we're going to finish prepping our fermenter. We're going to dump the sanitizer out, but we're not going to dump all of it. We're going to put most of it into this pitcher that you use for your sparging, and then we're going to put the pouch in there. And that's going to sanitize the exterior of the pouch to limit our possibility of any infection. Okay? So set that down, and then next what we're going to do is peel this lid off. So as I said, we're going to rip that tag off, and then to get these off, they're a little bit of a pain in the rear end, but that's okay. Just peel one section at a time, and then as you peel them, start to pick it up a little bit. Just kind of rotate and pop each section off as you go, so you can get the whole thing off. So you see the foam on here? That's just sanitizer. That's what we want to see. When we want to see foam covering all those surfaces, that means that has been contacted by the sanitizer and is now in a germ-free, well, somewhat germ-free environment, as long as it has a sanitizer on it. I'm going to set this down face up. I don't want to put that down and have that be in contact with dirt or something else. And we're going to do it as quickly as possible also to limit our exposure here. And then I'm just going to take this in. You see there's quite a bit of foam on the inside there too. That's what we want to see. Everything's covered in sanitizer. I'm just going to take this, and I'm just going to pour this, and if there's all the way to the top, or nearly to the top, if there's some left over, this can go down a drain, it can go in a yard, it's not going to hurt anything. So now, you'll see this is now empty, it's got foam in it, and that's okay. What I'm going to do though is I'm just going to put that cover back on until I'm ready to hopefully maintain that germ-free environment for as long as possible. Next, I'm going to take my bag of yeast, I'm going to massage it a little bit, and I'm going to shake it. What I'm doing here is there's a little bit of a yeast nutrient inside of here. We're going to mix that up with the yeast slurry that's in there. Just get that really nice and mixed up before I have to handle it again. And I'm just going to put it upside down because I'm going to open from the top. So I want that to be the part that's most sanitized. And we're just going to drop it in there. All right, that's going to float till we're ready. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go turn on our cold water, and we're going to start to chill our wort. So the way that the wort chiller works is it's a counterflow wort chiller. What that means is that the wort is being, and again, when I say wort, that's just unfermented beer. So at this point, everything in the brewing system is wort. It's essentially a super saturated sugar solution that we're going to put yeast into. The yeast is going to make alcohol. So when I say wort, that's what I mean. But right now, the wort is inside our brewing system. That's going to flow one direction through our float chiller, and the cold water is going to go the other direction. So this is going to be a tube within a tube, and as the wort or the unfermented beer goes through one way in one tube, the water is going to go around the outside through the other way, and there's going to be heat exchange. The water is going to pull the heat out of the wort, and it's going to be expelled through the exit pipe here out into our hot water drain or our hot water area. Meanwhile, this tube that we currently have going back into the solution here is going to, once we get a temperature difference, we're going to put that directly into the fermenter, and we're literally going to pump the beer, or not beer yet, but the wort, out of the brewing system into our fermenting bucket. Once I have this started, what I'm going to be, you'll see me touching each of these. Now, right now, they're both equally hot, and they're very hot, and I don't want to touch them for very long. They're silicone, it's not going to burn you if you just touch it quickly, but you just don't want to hold on to it. But I'm looking for a temperature differential. This is going to be hot, I want this to be cold. When this starts to cool down a bit, I'm going to transfer it. I don't want to wait until it's completely cold because that will cause some different things and different reactions to happen inside Our brewing vessel, we don't want that to happen. We want those to happen inside our fermenter. So now I'm going to go turn on our cold water, and I'll be right back. So a word about water pressure. When I turn on that cold water, I want to turn it on slowly. I don't want it to be full blast right away. I'm using a hose here at the brewery, so I just turn on just about a quarter of a turn, and then I'll start to turn it up just a little bit after that. I don't want a whole lot of water pressure coming through the system, especially when everything's hot. Things when they're hot, you introduce cold water, things can go haywire. We don't know how it's always going to react. This system should be fine, but I just want you to be prepared. Always turn it on slowly at first, and then you can always modulate it up from there. Now that everything's running appropriately, I'm going to go ahead and turn my pump on, and we're going to start to pump the wort back through the now cold water. So this is where I start to feel for my temperature differential here. So I'm going to feel here, and this should be a nice hot tube, which it is. It's very hot. And I'm waiting for a little bit cooler water to come through here before I transfer it over. Just give that about a minute or two. We're starting to get a little bit of a temperature differential. I'm going to wait for a little bit more. Right now this is still pretty doggone hot, which it should be. This I can put my hand on. So even that quickly, less than a minute, this is already cool enough to touch, which means I can start to transfer it to my fermenter here. All right, in order to do that, again, I'm going to take this off. I'm going to place it clean side up on a surface. Table's fine, chair's fine, whatever you've got. Right now, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to turn my ball valve until it's off. I'm not going to turn my pump off. I'm just going to turn the ball valve. I'm going to bring this up out of my solution. I'm not going to touch the end that was in there because that was all sanitized. Remember, I'm just going to touch it from up here. I'm going to transfer it over. I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn my ball valve back on. And now I see my liquid going back down in. And now that's just going to fill. So while that's filling, we're just going to wait, and we can actually watch that as the level rises. Again, the foam is supposed to be there. As the liquid is coming in underneath the foam, it's actually further sanitizing the surfaces as it comes up. So we're almost done with the pump here. We're getting to the bottom here. So one of the things that we're going to listen for is just going to listen for a change in the pump sound. We can also look here. If the lighting's proper, you can see how far up it is. With the evaporation and everything, you should never run into a scenario where you're going to overfill your fermenter. Generally, we have everything dialed in to where it's going to end up right where it should be, so I'm not overly concerned about it, but just keep an eye on it. Once that's done, we're going to turn the pump off manually right here, and then we're going to turn off our cold water, and then we'll come back into our yeast bench. So see you in a minute. So we hear that sound difference. I don't know if it's coming through on the camera or not, but you also see how we have enough foam that's coming out of the top here. And we're just going to manually turn off the pump, and then we're going to go turn off the water. And I can pull this directly out. Let that drain for a minute so we're not dripping everywhere. Then we'll just put that right back in there for safekeeping. All right, I'm going to go shut the water off. All right, so now we've got everything stowed here. What we're going to do is we're going to put our yeast into our wort, and that's what's going to turn it into beer. So again, remember we just had that in the sanitizer. I'm not going to try not handle this as much as possible, and I'm just going to grab this and tear it at the tear points. You can use scissors too, but if you do use scissors, please make sure that you sanitize those in the water as well. And note, I'm holding it on this side, I'm going to pour it out that side in hopes to keep as many germs away from it as possible. And then for the lid, we're going to take the lid, we're just going to put the lid right back on top. Alright, the next step, in your bin, you'll have an airlock assembly that looks like this. This is actually an overflow assembly. What I want you to do is go ahead and just give the tip of it, the plastic tip, a quick swirl in the sanitizer. We're going to take that. Now you can peel off the tape off the top of your fermenter. And then we're going to push that right through the grommet. And then with the remainder of your sanitizer, just grab a jar of some sort. I like to use mason jars, they're just handy. And fill them about 3/4 of the way full with sanitizer. And wherever you're going to go to ferment this, remember we talked about fermenting earlier, this just needs to remain under the liquid. So however you set that up, wherever you set that up is perfectly fine. But what this does is it creates a positive airlock. So it keeps any incoming air out of the system, but it allows CO2 to escape, and that'll bubble up over time. So you just want to put that somewhere safely. I like to put it just a little bit lower, like that, on the ground. And that's how it's going to sit for the next 2 weeks. All right, we'll see when it's time to bottle.